Hey, what's going on, everybody? It is Aaron Trevino here, and we have a terrific guest from beautiful Austin, Texas. How's it going, Matt?
Hey Aaron, how you doing, man? Good
Doing
to hear
well.
from you.
I can't complain this beautiful day. I've really been looking forward to this chat. I know we spoke at lunch last week, and it's a pleasure to have you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. Look forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, for those of us who aren't too familiar with you and what you do, could you introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Matt Perez. So I've been a real estate investor for quite some time now, about 15 years, a little over 15 years. So I started out right out of high school. I was about 19 when I started. Got my first deal around that time. Kind of a third generation real estate investor. My dad was in the business so for a little while, kind of amassed a little portfolio. And so, one of my fondest memories is kind of going out to the rental properties and helping them out and doing all those things right after school and things like that. So learned a lot through that process, kind of growing up. Um, and then, just kind of realized one day that this is something I really want to do. So what I ended up doing is purchasing my first property right out of high school, and we started kind of doing it the hard way. I went into it doing everything myself, doing all the sheetrock work, the plumbing stuff, and learning how to do everything myself. I have some battle wounds from that, not just figuratively, but physically as well. Kind of, doing all that crazy stuff. Falling off ladders and all kinds of crazy stuff. But yeah, so we did that. Kind of did it all myself. Learned a lot from that experience doing that, and then eventually kind of learned that's probably not the ideal way of going about it, and having a team is what makes most sense. So kind of hired some construction crew, and got into some other properties, and built a little portfolio myself pretty early on. Did that for a little while. Then eventually got my real estate license, kind of list my own properties, and started flipping. And then from there, eventually just kind of, continued doing that. And then we got into the market crisis in, late 2006, 2007. And everything kind of just, crumbled after that, unfortunately. So there's a lot learned from that. There's a lot of investors kind of in the same boat. There's a lot of things they shouldn't have done and could have done differently and whatnot, but there was a lot of learning lessons from that. At the end of the day, you always want to learn from other people and not your own mistakes, right? And so, unfortunately, there's all kinds of things I shouldn't have done then, but learned from it. There's one particular flip that I had around that time. It was right at the height of 2006. Had a kind of a high-end flip there in Corpus Christi, and we did all kinds of stuff to it, all kinds of renovations. Like I said, it's the top of the market, peak of the market of 2006. So right when I was finished with it is when the crash happened. So 2007, everything kind of went bust, and we lost out, and I had to think of all kinds of innovative ways to try to move this property. And that's kind of when a lot of things, I really learned how to be a little more innovative with selling property and moving it and whatnot. But anyway, that was a big learning experience. Ended up selling that an untraditional way, kind of like a wrap on that, a seller finance type deal to move it. And yeah, I mean, since then I've just kind of built back up, built portfolios, and started flipping from there.
Yeah, absolutely. You touched on something interesting there. What exactly is a wrap or the seller finance?
Yeah, so a wrap is actually when you hold the mortgage itself, and so you will seller finance that over to an end buyer, and it's called a wrap. So you keep the existing mortgage, and then you finance that over to another, and you still hold the existing note in place.
Okay, very good. So kind of Are there any particular times when you would want to incorporate the wrap, or how did you find out about this sort of strategy?
Well, like I said, it was, I had to be pretty innovative at the time. So I really had to learn about as many strategies as I could at the time because it was a pretty rough market, obviously. But yeah, so I really looked and had an attorney at the time, kind of look into different strategies, and when I had my attorney draw it up. And yeah, we put together the wraparound mortgage is what it's called. And so it really helped move the property. And so, what's nice about that is you continue to incur monthly payments on it. You typically have an interest rate above what your original mortgage is at, obviously, so you have some cash flow there. And then, you work out the financing terms with the buyer, the buyer of the property. So yeah, I mean, it's a good way to move property if needed.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting how you kind of have these different sorts of perspectives from, growing up in the industry, being that third generation, real estate guy, to, actually being hands-on, doing your own flips, having your back against the wall in '07, '08, right? To where you are now.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've learned so much, kind of going through the whole deal. But the good thing is, like I said, there was a lot to learn from that time period. So obviously we're in a completely different market now, and there was a lot of different things put into place to prevent that from happening in the future. But if that time were to come again, if we were to face a dip in the market or a decline in the housing market, I'm well prepared, ready to go, right? Because I've kind of been there, done that from the past. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, if we could maybe kind of revert back to, where you got started. I know you mentioned how you had some family in the business, but, what was your first deal like?
Yeah, I mean, so the first deal was always, like I said, it was pretty hands-on. It was a challenge. I mean, I mean, didn't know what I was doing, right? Just like anybody else. Get into it, and I was young, of course. Thought I knew it all. At the time, you're right out of high school, and I think you're invincible. So yeah, so I kind of took everything hands-on. Thought I could do it all, and quickly learned that that's not the way to go about it. So yeah, I mean, I would say that a lot of and a lot of times, especially like on these TV shows now, on HGTV and whatnot, they kind of make it look so easy, right? I mean, they make it look like it's an in and out type deal, and you get in there, you do the job, and you pick all these nice fixtures and stuff like that, and you're done, and you sell it. They don't typically touch on all the background things that go into the transaction and flipping a property and the rehab. It's a whole different ballgame when you're actually in it. So it'd be nice if there was a program that actually touched on all the other stuff. But yeah, so when you're actually in it, whole different deal. And I think that's kind of a mistake a lot of people make when they get into their first rehab, right? I mean, they kind of see all these commercial, or a lot of these television shows that make it look so easy. Once they get into it, they realize it's not an easy deal. But I would, at the end of the day, it's all about persistence and perseverance, right? A lot of people get knocked down on their first deal. They struggle getting on to the next after they've been beat down. So I really think it's important for anybody getting into the business to really be persistent about it. And it's all about learning from your mistakes and moving forward.
Sure, absolutely. Maybe for someone who's interested, in kind of getting into this world, into this realm, I mean, where did they start? How do they kind of make sure that their bases are covered, and that they can do the deal, right?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, having a mentor is a big deal. That's one thing that has really helped me through this whole process. Making sure that you have somebody that has been there, has been through, has experienced all the ins and outs of the business, I think is key. It's really helped me. I've had a mentor since day one. I was fortunate enough to have somebody that believed in me early on, and guided me through the process, through the ups and downs. And I think that has been a huge part of my success at the end of the day. So I think that's a big deal. If not, having multiple mentors, there's different perspectives from different mentors that can really guide you to get to that, that level or really where you want to be. So I would say that's probably one of the biggest things.
Yeah, absolutely. That's huge. Having someone in your corner who can not only vouch for you and help you out, but also, kind of just getting in there and doing it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Kind of getting in there, doing it, experiencing it. But like I said, having somebody there to guide you through it really helps. I mean, at the end of the day, you want to be hands-on, get to it, learn the different processes and that's involved with it. And at the same time, when you have somebody there, I don't want to say holding your hand, but somebody there kind of guiding you through the process, you really have that, it helps with the confidence and helps you get through it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if we could, maybe kind of run through from beginning to end, the process of even flipping a home, right?
Sure.
I mean, let's say, from the very beginning, when you're looking for a deal, for a home to flip, where do you even look? Where do you start?
Yeah, that's a good question. So there's various different ways of finding property. There's wholesalers you can work with. There's pre-foreclosures with different banks. There's a lot of different avenues to help find property. There's some on the market. Or, Zillow. There might be some there. So there's several different avenues where you can really help finding that first property. So I would say the best thing to do. There's always, of course, getting with a good agent always helps as well. A real estate agent that knows the market really well can kind of help you guide. I don't know so much about finding a good or a good investment property, but they can definitely help you guide with the market for sure. As far as the whole process of flipping a home, the first process is really obviously get the financing in place, as you know, and kind of getting with a good solid lender that can, get the right terms and whatnot early on. And that helps, ultimately with closing costs, holding costs and whatnot. But yeah, so the biggest thing, the biggest advice that I would have for somebody getting into the flipping business is having a solid team, and the biggest being contractors. Contractors has been the biggest pain. I've been through, can't tell you how many, because at the end of the day, I mean, you have the best vested interest in the property, right? I mean, the contractors is just kind of a lot of them are just, in and out and don't have the best vested interest. So contractors are a big deal. Dependability is pretty big with the contractors. The team I have set up now, I mean, I've been working them for years. They know that what I'm looking for in the property, they know what I expect, what type of flooring I want, because we just have that built relationship, right? So they already know what to expect. And that's important, building a solid relationship with contractors and with the team, with title companies, with obviously the lender, as I mentioned. Those are really key things, because at the end of the day, when things happen, they kind of have your back on the deal, and they're really good about working with you, especially with repeat business. All right. I mean, if you have multiple projects, once you start the next one, they kind of know the way you work. And so that really helps. So yeah, I mean, I would say a solid contractor is a big deal. Really building out your team, contractors, title company, and also a solid lender.
Yeah, absolutely. It can kind of seem like a big task for someone who's even just starting out. So, I mean, how can you kind of connect with those good contractors, lenders, title companies? Where can you find them?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, there's a lot of different ways. I mean, there's several different websites I know online that kind of links you up with local contractors. You could even get with referrals from title companies. I've even gotten some I've actually gone on construction sites. And I'll go in there and kind of talk to some of them that are kind of on site and things like that. That's a good way. Because, if they're worthy for a builder and they're doing well for them, then obviously they can, work with you really well too. So I picked up a few doing that as well, kind of going to just driving around, going to different areas where builders are. So yeah, and those are some really good ways of getting contractors.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's definitely a great way to get contractors and get some good people on your team. So in terms of, let's say you identify a property to flip, right? Where do you go from there? I mean, what specific repairs are you generally making to the house?
Yeah, it varies. There are some. I typically like to purchase properties that obviously with good bones and average repair. Typically runs between $20,000 and $50,000. It depends how much work it needs. Um, but on average, I mean, you're putting in upgrading granite countertops, new flooring, painting. The standard things that go into a home. Every occasionally, I'll go into a full rehab where it needs pretty much everything down to the studs. My thought on that, however, is that it typically, if you're devoting more time to one project, you can typically do 2 to 3 within that time frame. So I typically like to do on the lighter rehabs, so I'm not invested too much time on a project, unless it's something that I feel like it's going to have a greater return. Then I'll typically shy away from those types of properties.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. And it kind of sounds like, once you get one under your belt, you can have multiple projects going on at the same time, potentially sharing different crews between projects, right?
Exactly. Yeah, that's important. I mean, and like I said, whenever you have multiple, contractors that you've been working with for a while, it really helps to kind of, plan and kind of say, well, this contractor's going on this project, we have another one going on the other, and that relationship. And when you don't have to babysit the contractors at the end of the day, that makes a big deal because you can focus on your business and not be so much in the business.
Yeah, absolutely. You touched on something interesting earlier, kind of talking about delegating, and kind of, in the beginning you thought you knew it all, you were doing it all yourself. Was there a moment when you kind of realized you needed to delegate, or how did you go about delegating tasks?
Yeah, that's a good question. So uh, I think it's really important to, and again, it's about building out the team. So um, what I would do is, I would have my contractors in place, and then I would have um, the rest of the team. We would typically have like a meeting of what needs to be done and whatnot, and I would delegate, accordingly. Now, actually, that I'm in Austin, of course, we're in the pretty heavy in the Corpus Christi market and in South Texas. But now that I'm in Austin, I have delegated a project manager over there. And so they're very familiar on how things work. I've had to, just like anything else, you teach them the system and everything and the processes, the team, and how we go about each rehab. There's always a learning curve when you're delegating, right? Because there's going to be people that are either not as experienced as you are and whatnot, so you really have to relay all that information. So delegating the right person to the right position is key. And so the project manager I have over there is working really well, fortunately. At the end of the day, you want to be able to delegate somebody who you can trust and know can get the job done. Because if not, then there's always going to be a bunch of headaches, right? You can't focus on growing the business. But yeah, I mean, I would say having the right person in the right position is a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely crucial. One thing I thought I'd ask as well is, it kind of seems like you've done business in different cities in Texas. What are kind of some differences, doing a flip in Corpus compared to doing a flip in Austin or somewhere else?
Yeah, there's every market's different. Every market's going to have its own set of challenges, right? In Corpus Christi, there's always been its own set of challenges. The market over there has a standard of doing foundation issues over there, which there are multiple markets here in Texas. But in Corpus Christi in particular, anytime a foundation work's done or there's a slab property, a hydrostatic test is kind of follows right afterwards. And so there's a standard in the business there where every property has to get a hydrostatic test, which some people do here in other markets in Austin and in other areas, but it's really a big deal there in Corpus. And so you almost have to factor that into your initial budget, or make sure it gets done, because that's a big, and it can be very expensive. Foundation itself, as you know, is very expensive, and with that, the reroute that comes with that is also pretty, and that's not to factor any roof issues or any interior things that might need to be done to the property. So to kind of touch on the reroute, they have to actually go in there and excavate and find the specific leak within the plumbing system underneath the house. And so the expensive part is getting excavators out there to kind of do all that work. And that's what runs up the cost typically. So in the Corpus market, that's something that affects investors at the end of the day, because it's not something that's common in other markets as it is here. In Austin in particular, though there are foundation issues, there are other issues that typically arise here. One thing that Corpus has that Austin doesn't is there's a windstorm issue of there, obviously, because there's more hurricanes and whatnot that go through the Corpus area. So windstorm insurance is a must over there. And that drives up cost as well, and potential cash flow on rental properties, because insurance rates are pretty high because of the windstorm insurance. That's something that Austin doesn't have to deal with. It's kind of give and take, right? In Austin, you have higher initial purchase price here, so it's harder to cash flow because of the overall valuation of the properties here. In Corpus, it's more of an issue with insurance and windstorm. So every market has its own set of challenges. It's just a matter of being smart about how to factor that into your initial acquisition to get around it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting at how, for someone coming from the outside, maybe out of Texas, Texas is a large place, and there's a lot of different little nuances and rules in different markets.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, in other states, I mean, there's going to be their own sets of issues. There's tornado issues in some parts of the country, and you got the fire issues, and so there's every area is going to have their own set. It's just, like I said, it's a matter of how you work the deal initially.
Yeah, absolutely. So for you, what sort of you're also wholesaling, didn't you say, right?
Yeah. So there's so many flips you can do at a time, and so we do have a wholesaling business as well. So I'll work with other investors on wholesaling property if I have too much going on, and I do have the wholesaling business that kind of helps generate leads, obviously, not just for my flipping business, but in other markets here in Texas, I wholesale. So yeah, I mean it's an additional business that I have that's worked out really well for me.
Yeah, absolutely. So could you kind of explain, what wholesaling is?
Yeah, sure. So essentially, you're acquiring a property. You get a property on the contract, and you're assigning your interest in the property to another investor or end buyer. So you're just simply assigning the interest over to that individual, and they're the ones that actually close on the transaction. You typically get an assignment fee for that transaction.
Sure, absolutely. So, are there times when, let's say you're looking at just a property, right? So are there times when hey, this would be a good wholesaler, or hey, this would be a good flip?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of the time there's a lot of meat on the bone per se. The higher profit margin, then I'll typically go with the flip strategy. If not, then we'll tend to wholesale it off. But that's not necessarily always the case. I mean, if there's I have a lot going on with on the flipping business, and I'll work with other investors on wholesaling it. So it just really depends. But at the end of the day, if there's a lot of profit margin to be had on a transaction, you're in it, for lower amount, then I'll flip a property. So yeah, I mean, it just really depends on the transaction. With that said, there's also a lot of different strategies that you kind of have to consider when acquiring a property or meeting with the homeowner initially. I kind of refer to it as having a toolbox when you're going to meet with a homeowner, because every homeowner has a different situation and whatnot. So that's important.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in terms of the wholesaling, you kind of described, you did a great job describing, what you could wholesale versus, you have the more meat on the bone flipping, or you could flip it, right? So with wholesaling, can you do this remotely, or do you have to be in the market where you're wholesaling?
No, yeah, I mean, you could really be in a market and you can do it in any market really, and that would be considered a virtual wholesaling. And I mean, you can really do it with. I mean, believe it or not, there's a lot of people, especially in the market we're in, where people just don't like people in their homes. You can easily virtually wholesale in other markets, and they will actually get the property under contract over the phone. I use dot loop, so I send the contract over to them via the digital signing software. They get it, sign it back. So yeah, I mean, you can really be anywhere in the country and wholesale it. So it's pretty nice. I mean, you can really do it anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. That's huge. For a lot of people being able to do things remotely.
Mhm.
So for you, we kind of talked a bit about, your background, what you're currently doing now. What are you looking forward to in the future?
Yeah, I mean, it's really growing my businesses in multiple markets. Multifamily is a big deal right now. Kind of really starting to focus on that as well. Building a portfolio, especially on the multifamily side. I think there's a lot of opportunity there. So that's kind of something that I'm really starting to transition into.
Yeah, absolutely. And it seems like a great fit, kind of given that you had mentioned how when you grew up, you were kind of looking after those rentals, kind of hanging around. What is it about multifamily that's special to you? What do you like about it?
Well, I just think well, first of all, there's always somebody that needs a place to live, right? I mean, so, real estate is the place to invest if you're needing to invest your money and whatnot. And that's the place to be. It's a lot of the most wealthy people in the country have started with real estate. I think it's 80% of millionaires in this country have gotten their start from real estate, which is pretty interesting. So yeah, I mean, multifamily, I think is it's very stable. It's a good area to really to invest a little more quickly in growing your portfolio. Single family is kind of a little more of an on ramp. Got to have 100 properties just to get one in multifamily, right? You got a 100-unit multifamily deal. Though there's a little more work involved in acquiring a large multifamily building, it's worth it at the end of the day. I mean, it would take you a lot longer to acquire that on the single family side.
Sure, absolutely. So, maybe for someone who's looking to transition from, flipping those single family homes into maybe doing multi-unit duplex, fourplex, sixplex, whatever it may be, what do
Mhm.
you think some challenges are maybe transitioning from single family to multifamily?
Well, I think there's quite a few. I mean, there are a lot of differences. So, I think it's very important to learn how to analyze multifamily transactions. It's typically analyzing an income approach to value. So it's very important to learn how to analyze some transactions, or what they call underwriting multifamily units. So yeah, so learning how to do different parts of the multifamily um, underwriting process, I think, is crucial, because that's ultimately going to, be the a difference between you cash flowing or not doing very well on a transaction.
Yeah, that's absolutely huge. That underwriting, that, doing your due diligence, doing your homework, and making sure that everything checks out.
Exactly. Yeah, no doubt. I mean, it's very important. I mean, it is a single family as well, obviously. But when you're dealing with the larger volume, millions of dollars on each transaction, you want to make sure that your due diligence is very thorough.
Sure, absolutely. So, when you're talking about multifamily, what's kind of the process for underwriting? What are you specifically looking at to make sure, hey, this is a viable deal?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things. I mean, of course, you want to make sure that you have a reasonable cap rate in a transaction. Um, you want to make sure that, particularly, I prefer a Class B multifamily unit, and so that's important to you. Adding value to the building is always a big deal as well. So there's several different things that I personally, like to consider before getting into a multifamily deal.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm assuming you're mostly looking here in the Central Texas area, or what kind of markets do you see being potentially good for multifamily?
Well, I mean, there are a lot of really good markets, but yeah, of course, Texas has very good, Dallas, Houston, even Austin has some really good multifamily um, areas and markets and whatnot. So at the end of the day, it's about the deal, right? So you want to make sure that the numbers work, and the transaction is going to work for you. But there's opportunity all over the state and country for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So, is there anything that, you haven't said that you'd really just like to hammer home?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I would, as I mentioned a while ago, with single family or getting into a property, I think it's important, as is with multifamily we discussed, when you're getting into a property on the single family side, I think it's very important to be well versed, as I mentioned, when approaching a homeowner. I think you kind of, I touched on it a while ago, but having a set of tools going into it. So you gotta have, make sure that you have the right set of tools to present to a homeowner. If a cash offer doesn't necessarily work, there might be other options that can help the homeowner. The company I have now, fairhomeoffer.com, we're more of a solution-based company, right? I mean, so we try to make sure that we can offer the best solution for the homeowner. If it's not necessarily a cash offer, then we want to, help them, refer them to an agent, or possibly help them with a loan. So there's several different things that you want to be able to present to the homeowner whenever you're, initially on there at their home.
Yeah, absolutely. That's crucial, kind of being able to do your own homework, do your own due diligence, and making
That's
sure you can present that in a way that makes sense and it's appealing, right?
exactly. Yeah, it's very, very important at the end of the day. Because every homeowner has their own set of challenges and whatnot. So at the end of the day, you have to tailor it to what's going to make sense for them. A lot of the time, moving with a cash offer is the way they end up going, just because they can't, for whatever reason, sell it conventionally. And so I think that's typically the way it goes. But there are some times where it would make sense, to help them in another way. And I think that's kind of a difference with us and some other companies is, they just go straight for the cash offer, and if they can't get it, they're done, right? And so I think it's very important to work with the homeowner and trying to figure out the best solution.
Yeah, you brought up an interesting point, that distinction between, just making that cash offer versus, being a problem solver and trying to, give them a solution.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's a big deal, and again, that's come with years of experience, along the way, where we've learned that this is about helping the homeowner at the end of the day, and you have to put that first. I've always said that um, it's always about the people first, then the process and product, right? And so I kind of go with the three P's, and it's very important, because I think at the end of the day, helping out the people, helping out doing it really helps with uh, the business, and really helps you, um, with in general. In general, it helps you with repeat business. I'd say.
Yeah, that's absolutely crucial. Just giving that good solution, being that problem solver, and that could lead to opportunities later down the road, whatever they may be, right?
Exactly. Yeah, at the end of the day, and and I've experienced that myself. People appreciate you helping them out, and they have family members, or they have friends and whatnot that might be in the same situation later down the road, and you're first on their list to call when they're in that situation. You always want to be in that position.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a testament to your hard work. When you get referrals like that, and you're solving problems, and making all parties happy about it.
Exactly, no doubt.
Yeah, absolutely, Matt. Well, is there, where can we find you?
Yeah, of course, I'm on Facebook. I'm on Facebook, and on Instagram as well. We have a website, fairhomeoffer.com. We're there to help when anybody needs assistance.
Okay, absolutely. Are you looking for any sort of partners in the near future with multifamily, single family?
Yeah, always looking to partner up with anybody. So more than welcome, more than open to connect with anybody, do business together.
Okay, sounds good, Matt. I've really enjoyed having you on. Learned a heck of a lot, not only about you, but also, about the flips you've done, the wholesaling, and you've been a terrific guest. So thanks again for coming on.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Aaron.
All righty, talk soon.
Talk to you later. Bye bye.